What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Faithful Fanatic. I am your host at Scotty Drown. I am here with our special guest host. You guys have seen him before if you tune into the show regularly, my man Cole Thompson. We are going to get into the Sixers loss in this show. We're going to talk about those refs from game two. We're going to talk a little bit of Eagles draft, a little bit of what we want to happen versus a little bit of what we think will happen. But before we get into all of that, my man Cole, how are you doing today, my friend? Happy Hump Day. I'm getting lost in my weekdays here, man, with all the NBA playoffs and stuff. But happy Hump Day to you, my friend.
Hey, man, Scotty's been a great day. I had my only class of the day canceled. So, after this, I got to get towards the end of the semester. So I got to grind out some schoolwork today later. But, man, I'm just happy to be able to come on here and complain about how the Sixers and the officials have disappointed me so far. And talk about how I'm preparing for the Eagles to disappoint me on Thursday night.
Life of a Philly fan, disappointment. It is a recurring theme. So I'm glad you point that out here, Cole. But I'm glad to hear you're doing well. Middle of the week, you're getting towards the end of the semester there, man. So I feel you. Just like me, kind of with work. End of the month, it starts ramping up a lot. So we're cramming a bunch in at the end of the month. I was pretty busy, which is why we're not at a regular time, by the way. That's why we're a little bit later here in the morning. But nonetheless, let's start at the top, man. You mentioned it, that miserable loss, game two for the Sixers against the New York Knicks. Looked like a game with about a minute left that the Sixers had in hand. They were up by about 4 points. Going into that last minute of basketball, and then the world flipped over upside down onto Philadelphia's heads, I guess you could say. But first things first, Cole, I do just want to honestly get your initial reaction to it. Like, how did you feel that night versus this morning now that you've had time to process it? That's what I'm first interested in here, man.
There's been two moments I felt like this as a Sixers fan, and that was last year in Game 6 after we lost to the Celtics, but even then, it was 100% on us.
Yeah.
After the Raptors Game 7, which, again, it was really, I wouldn't even say it was on us. It was just a great shot by Kawhi.
Yeah.
This one, there was a lot of things the Sixers could have done better. If anybody else would have done anything the entire game other than Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, we wouldn't have been in that position. They were the clear cut, heads and shoulders, two best players on the floor. Yep. But the issue is when you have the two best players on the floor and the 10 worst as well, you run into a problem. The ending. I didn't have words at first. I didn't have words to say at first because I was just so there was so many blatant fouls on Tyrese Maxey, and I am the last person when it comes to complaining about officials.
You are that, yeah.
Always try to find, but even that, there was at least 2 or 3 fouls. There was at least 2 timeouts by Nick Nurse, and everybody complains about Nick Nurse sprinting on the floor to call timeouts. Well, guess what? I'm sure tomorrow night he will be on the other side of the floor to call timeout. He will not miss a second. It was just disturbing. The only real complaints I had about the Sixers at the end of that game, it wasn't on the inbound play because, I mean, the Knicks again, Maxey was fouled, but the Knicks did a great job of creating the chaos.
Yeah.
Which is the best thing you can do. I get it's the playoffs and you want to hold the whistles and let the guys play it out. But even if you're not calling a foul, Maxey falling to the floor with possession to travel.
Yeah.
So it should have been a stop. That should have been the call anyway.
Yeah.
Is the Sixers failing to box out after the first missed DiVincenzo 3. And who's there and fails to box out? Who else but Tobias Harris? Tobias Harris fails to box out. And then the Sixers, for some reason, after Dante DiVincenzo missed a wide open 3, lets him stand out there and get another open 3.
Get another wide open one.
But at the end of the day, they should not have been in that position because they should have called a foul or given the timeout. One or the other would have been fine, but you didn't give them anything. 2 timeout calls that they completely ignored, 3 fouls they completely ignored, and even a travel on the Sixers would have at least allowed the Sixers defense to set up.
Yeah.
Ignored. It was, and like I know the Sixers filed a grievance, and the NBA came out and said they were wrong. So, I don't really think there's any dispute from anybody here on what happened. It was pretty blatant. Even Stephen A. Smith, the guy who loves the New York Knicks more than he loves Oxygen, said the Sixers were robbed.
Yeah, and that's how you know. That is exactly how you know when a guy like Stephen A. Smith could go on national television on his show and admit that the calls were incorrect and that the Sixers should have ultimately gotten something there, right? Like a foul, a timeout, something. I agree with everything you said. You did. I remember on Monday night, you were texting me like towards the end of the game, and I ended up texting you back. You didn't text me back, so I knew you were in a dark place, didn't know really where to go. So I definitely feel you. I feel that you did do that. You're not lying about that. I was in a similar space. I was just more angry than anything. I woke up yesterday morning angry. And, you know, obviously when the last 2-minute report or whatever they want to call it, when that comes out confirming everything that you already knew, it makes you even more angry because, okay, you've now accepted the blame. You've now accepted what happens. But what are you actually going to do about it? And that's my biggest thing here is that in reality, those sets of refs, should they be fined? Yeah, they should definitely be fined for missing those calls. Like that amount of calls within like a minute, not even a minute, man. Not even a minute. Like within seconds to miss that many calls to ignore an NBA head coach when they are trying to call a timeout. You should be fined, and I think it should even go further than that. They shouldn't be allowed to ref another playoff game. I think they should be investigated for sports betting. You do it for players. I think they need to look into the refs once again to make sure they don't have family members with accounts in sports betting, different things like that, because this directly affected the outcome. And I know I'm somebody that generally speaking, I do complain about refs a lot. I don't know if it's just because I played basketball and like I know what basketball is supposed to look like. I know the calls. Even when I played, I was a heavy complainer when I would get called for fouls, different things. So that's just the type of guy I am. I bitch about that shit. But this, you know, there's other cases, and you mentioned it, like the Boston series last year, that game 6, right? But at the end of the game, Embiid has how many turnovers? D-Melt misses how many threes? Tobias has 2 points. Like you can point to so many other game-altering things that decided that game. Kawhi Leonard shot, yeah, he traveled on it. But let's be honest, we all really didn't see that in the moment. We just saw a great shot in the moment.
And that's the thing. If it's like one missed call, you know,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to be upset. But it's human beings. Mistakes are going to happen. Like, am I really that upset like that they didn't call the travel on Kawhi? I didn't even think about it in the moment. Like
exactly.
Exactly. But for that to have so many missed calls in literally 10 seconds.
Yeah.
The most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. And you know, this is true. Tyrese Maxey got held worse than Juju did against by James Bradbury.
Yeah. Straight up. How ironic.
Like the exact same thing, except one's a contact sport. One is a contact sport. And you know what?
And that's the thing, man.
Even I said after the Super Bowl,
we live with it.
Yeah.
Right? We live with that.
If you go down textbook, to the T, that's probably
it is a holding. It is a holding.
Yeah, probably shouldn't call that late in the game. In basketball, you definitely call it. Because you can't do that in basketball.
You have to.
There is no like contact like that. It was just insane. And I think so much.
And I think the other thing, man, the other thing to mention here is like, it's not just that it was only in that part of the game either. The whole entire game, they allowed New York to be more physical than the Philadelphia 76ers, calling touch fouls for Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, different guys on their team. I think that is what makes it like holistically bad, right? Like I felt like that going into the last moment. The Sixers persevered thanks to a Tyrese Maxey. That's the thing that gets lost here. Tyrese Maxey had an incredible flu game. He was sick. He was able to come out, drop 35 points, I believe over 10 assists, over 8 rebounds in this game, approaching a triple-double. And we just completely have to forget about it because the refs screwed up.
They took away the greatest flu game ever.
They took away, arguably.
No argument. It's the greatest flu game ever. Jordan was hungover. He didn't have the flu. But yeah, that's the worst part. How well Embiid and especially Maxey down the stretch. Because Maxey, obviously, he never like an amazing third quarter, but he picked it back up in the fourth quarter. And you can see him after. Tyrese Maxey, no matter what, usually smiles. He looked distraught after.
Yeah.
He looked distraught. Yeah. He is sick. He was sick. And then you throw in the fact that he did all that, not feeling good. He probably wanted to die the entire time he was out there. And then that is how it ends. Yeah. That is how it ends. Just ruined a great Sixers moment and completely changed the outlook on this series. Because it went from now the Sixers are down 2-0 from what would have been, we're tied 1-1. We have home court. Now the Sixers have to win the next game or it's over.
Have to win the next two, really, right? Like you can win the next one and then go and lose the next one at home, and then you got to play an elimination game in New York, and that's not really what you want to do either. So it really, it really knocks this series off balance. And once again, it just brings us back to that point of what are they going to do about it? I did see that there's some like challenge that the Sixers can do. It can be raised to Adam Silver, so on and so forth. And they would be forced to go back and replay that last, portion of the game where those incorrect calls occurred or did not occur. That's not going to happen, right? Like, that's not going to happen. They're not going to go back to New York and replay those last, 50 seconds. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not getting my hopes up. That's never going to happen. That is never going to happen. Like, there's just...
I think it's happened 5 or 6 times in history.
Yeah, there's no way they're going to go back to... They're going to bring everybody back to New York after game... They would probably play game 3, bring everybody back to New York and be like, hey, guys, by the way, we're going to play 15 seconds.
Bring the fans back, too.
Like, it just isn't happening. It just isn't happening.
Right. It sucks. It just sucks. And what sucks about it is that it's one of those things where it doesn't matter what you do later. It's not going to fix the issue. It's not going to fix the mistakes that were made. And now the Sixers ultimately have to pay for it. And man, this is all great that, maybe the Sixers don't end up winning the series. Maybe New York was destined to win the series from the beginning. Maybe they were always going to win it. We will never know that now. And the biggest thing for me, man, is if the Sixers are able to come back, win this series, I would imagine it would take 7 games to do so. I don't think they're going to win 4 in a row, especially with this type of officiating that varies game to game as far as how fair they're calling the game. But what are they also doing? They're putting more games on Embiid's legs as well. If we could have got the Knicks out of there in 5, if we win that game, if we could have got the Knicks out of there in 6, if we win that game, that takes a game or 2 off of Embiid's hurt knee, all of the other ailments that he's dealing with right now. So it's just funny, man. It's funny how it always seems to work out that way, right? Against Philly. Like, can we just ever have the big moment and it just be us that kind of skates by? But the thing is, man, the thing about that and asking for that is that Philadelphia and their fan base wouldn't even want it like that.
No,
it's not to say that we wouldn't take it, but we wouldn't want it like that.
Yeah,
and that's what's disgusting me about New York fans right now. They're okay with it happening. They'll take it like that, and they wanted it like that.
Well, I mean, when you haven't been relevant since '75, I mean, there's that's usually what happens. But it's just like that. Listen, I guess if it's the Knicks meant to win, they're meant to win. Yeah, I have a terrible dude. We could win this game in 6 games. I still have a terrible taste in my mouth.
Yeah,
you're putting, like you said, Embiid looked like hell out there at the end of the game. He looked like hell, and now you're gonna make. And now he has to definitely. He might have to play a whole nother game if the Sixers want to win this series.
Yeah, it sucks, man. So going forward, you mentioned some stuff at the top. Let's move away from the refs. We're not moving on from it. It's going to linger. It's going to be there this entire series. And if they make it further, or wherever the Knicks go, it's going to linger throughout the playoffs, regardless of what happens in this series. Honestly, it's going to linger throughout each series.
For the Knicks, they better hope they win this game in 4 or 5. They win this series in 4 or 5. They win this series in 4 or 5. It's a little less bad. But if they win it in 7 games, oh my God.
Yeah, fair.
That changes everything.
Yeah, when you're talking about a 1 to 2 game difference, Yeah, you're looking at a big impact
Yeah, if
there.
they go out there and they sweep us or they win this in 5, I'm gonna be like, all right, whatever. They still earned, like, to a point they still earned it.
Yeah,
But
gentlemen sweep. You earn
yeah,
that, man. Like
yeah.
for sure. If
But
they take care of business, if they're able to steal like a game 4, game 3, even right, like there's part of this as the rebound for the Sixers where it's like you need to bounce back strong. You need to show that you're not mentally weak after a game like that, right? Whereas the Knicks come out and stomp on them in game 3 in Philly, that's going to tell a lot as well that the Sixers were going to crumble at some point regardless, in a sense, right? So that's kind of the other side of that as well. I wanted to ask you something that you mentioned earlier, because you mentioned you're a guy that, doesn't like to use officiating as excuses. I think there is still, even with everything we talked about here, there was still room to secure a victory. Kyle Lowry could have made some free throws. Guys could have rebounded at the end of the game, boxed out, all types of things, right? There's a bunch of different things that could have happened for the Sixers to get this done. I want to know from you personally, just off the top of your head here, who disappointed you the most in the Sixers as far as that rotation? Which guy really needs to step up for you? Really, just pissed you off in this game?
everybody not named Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, and I mean that 100%. They all played terribly. They were all awful. Kyle Lowry was the third best player on the Sixers, and he had 6 points or 7 points. He had 7 points, and he's like 39 years old. No offense to people that are 39, but he is like, this is not prime Toronto Kyle Lowry out there. This is not the Kyle Lowry that was the second best player on a championship team.
Yeah.
This is an aged veteran Kyle Lowry who should not be the third best player on the team. And I mean, I'm going to say he's the most disappointing because he's making the money like he should be the third best player on the team. It's Tobias Harris. I mean, dude, wrong position half the time, all the time on defense. Like, and I tried so hard to like Tobias Harris, but I mean, it's just because he seems like he's a good, like, he doesn't seem like he's a bad dude. Like, he seems like he's a dude that if I knew in real life, I would like.
Yeah.
But he is just, he is just so hard to watch sometimes. Especially, I get when Tobias Harris came in here, he was meant to be the 4th best player, and he would fit that role perfectly.
Yeah.
But now he's getting paid like he should be getting, like he's the 3rd best player, and he's not playing anywhere near it. Anywhere near it. So, I mean, we got to see more from Buddy Hield and Kelly Oubre too. Those are 2 guys that really. I know we talked about Kelly Oubre, how he's a flash in the paint, like he's so up and down and inconsistent. So I'm expecting a big game from Oubre at some point. Ricky Council, I would like to see him get more minutes. Honestly, just feel like they don't use him a ton.
Yeah, I agree.
He's young. He just got the contract. He had a lot of great moments. But, dude, it's just somebody's got to step up. Literally anybody other than those 2. Because if they don't, even if they find a way through the Knicks, they're going to get steamrolled by the Bucks or the Pacers.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's, at the end of the day, the Sixers aren't just looking at this first round series. You're looking at the series going forward as well, right? Like, obviously, you're down 0-2. You need to focus on this. But when you're trying to build positive trajectory over the course of the playoffs, you're going to need other guys to get hot. You're going to need other guys to show that they can impact the game in their own way outside of Maxey and Embiid. And I think your point with Tobias is perfect, man. We've been harping on him for years now. It's actually insane. But this guy, man, he had a great first half, in my opinion, even with the shot not really falling. I thought he had a great first half. He was attentive on defense. He was helping with the boards. He was making a lot of hustle plays, a lot of deflections and strips when guys were going to the rack. And then I tweeted it out at halftime, man. I tweeted it out and I said, don't disappear in this game, Tobias. And I didn't mean it from a scoring aspect because he can disappear from time to time. Sometimes the shot's not falling. Sometimes he's taking shots out of rhythm of the offense. That's all fine and dandy in my opinion. If he's playing hard as hell, if he is giving his all out on the floor and he's willing to dive on the floor for loose balls, play defense, rebound. He's a guy that is athletic enough when he's trying that he can be impactful in the game. Second half, he goes back into that turtle shell. He becomes just strictly a shooter and everything is off, right? So on top of the shot not falling, then you see at the end of the game, more specifically, Tobias Harris just standing around watching the guys play while he's on the court. He's an unwatchable player. He is. And at this point, he, in my opinion, should have lost all rights to playing time at this point. Like, he should be on a Ricky Council level right now, right? Like, where if Kelly Oubre and Nick Batum are stinking it up, well, let's throw Tobias in there. Let's see how he's doing today, if he can bring some energy. That's literally what he would be used as. I understand it's politics in basketball, especially with the Sixers, but that's where we are with Tobias. That's how bad he has been, not only throughout these first 2 games against the Knicks, but throughout the season, honestly. He's been horrible. He's already out the door. That's the thing with him. So I do agree with you as the second highest paid player on the team, making $40 million a year. Yeah, he's the guy we look to immediately, but I think we have kind of stopped doing that anyways, just because it's almost an annoying talking point at this point. The guy I'm looking at is Kelly Oubre. I think he's been amazing on defense against Jalen Brunson. I think he's made it really tough on Jalen Brunson. But that's not what we necessarily brought Oubre in to do. And that's not what we got from Oubre throughout the regular season, right? We got plenty of sparks from Oubre where he scored 18 to 25 points in a game. And that is what we need right now from Oubre. We need him to step up and be that third guy on offense. He did something that stuck out to me, man. And I don't know if it was the last game or the first game that they played, but he went to the rack on Hartenstein, right? He's going to the rack. Hartenstein's on his side, on his hip. And he goes up and he tries to go to the opposite side of the rim and finish with a reverse. Hartenstein blocks it off the backboard. It's done, right? No basket. In the regular season, Kelly Oubre would have tried to punch that on Hartenstein. So that's where I'm confused, and I think that is an underlying issue all around for Kelly Oubre right now, is that he's either not playing with the aggressiveness or he's not playing with the right amount of confidence to score the basketball like he should be able to. So to that point, Kelly Oubre is the guy that I'm looking to, specifically Thursday night at home where role players are supposed to play better, right? I'm looking for him to step up in a huge way on Thursday night, Kelly Oubre specifically. To your point, man, about Tobias Harris, though, just to go back to it for 1 second, I know it's annoying, but you look over across the bench, man, or across the court, I guess, to the Knicks bench, right? And you just look at guys like Bogdanovich, right? He's not getting paid like that much. He's got a decent contract for his output, right? Like it's a bad contract, but he hit, 2 threes at the end of that game that allowed the Knicks to stay in it or take the lead in this game?
Yep.
Miles McBride can strip Maxey, get a big offensive rebound strip and lay up and get to the free throw line. He can hit the open 3 from time to time. He plays good defense. Josh Hart, the biggest example in the world. Josh Hart is not being paid like a Tobias Harris. Look what he's done the first 2 games, man.
Oh, let's one thing I want to talk about. Speaking of Josh Hart, and we're not Nova guys, me and you. What did you think about Nova, who's supposed to be a Philly school, posting all these? And I get Brunson, DiVincenzo, Josh Hart went to Nova, and they're all great players from Villanova. Won 2 national championships there.
It's interesting.
But what do you think if you're supposed to be a Philly school? What do you think?
I think that's a little I think that's nasty business, man. I really do. Like, if they are truly trying, and they do try to fit in with Philly, right? Like, they do. They try to make themselves a part of the Philadelphia culture. They make themselves one of the 4 schools or the Big 5 or whatever in the area, right? They fight for it constantly. But then you're tweeting out congratulations. You're tweeting out celebratory posts for Josh Hart when he's hitting threes. And, for Dante DiVincenzo hitting game winners against the Sixers, ruining the lives of millions of Philadelphia fans.
Yeah. So, that's my thing. If it wasn't against the Sixers, I wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a big deal at all.
And here's the reason, here's the reason why everybody wants them to be considered a Philly school. It's because they want a good basketball team to root for.
So the only good one.
That's why. Because They can't like they want to say that, oh, I like all Philly team, like I want a basketball team to root for.
Yeah. There's no good ones.
That is the sole reason why. Because if you really want to root for a Philly basketball program, Temple, Drexel, LaSalle, you have options.
Yeah.
You have options across the board.
Yeah. Yeah, you got plenty of options, man, and they're actually a little more local, right? So
yeah,
it is funny, man, but that was kind of, to me, and once again, didn't go to Nova, right? I'm not a Nova fan, so I'm different from somebody who loves, just all the Philadelphia, collegiate schools or whatever, what their basketball, however they look at it. I'm not even sure. I'm not a Nova fan, but what that signifies to me is Villanova separating themselves from the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
That's what it symbolizes to me.
Yes.
I don't know. I've always thought it was a little weird, guys, that are Philly fans that go on to root for Villanova guys' teams. You can root for the players. I don't care about that. Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, these guys work hard. They're very likable guys. I get it. Why you would follow them, why you would root for their success, their personal success. I root for Duke guys. I'm a Duke fan, right? Like that's what you were pointing at there, you UNC, you Tar Heel fan. That's what you were pointing at there. I root for the players. I root for Zion. I root for, Paolo Banchero down in Orlando. But do I root for their teams? No. They're Eastern Conference. Some of those teams are in the Eastern Conference. Some of those players. Jason Tatum plays for the fucking Celtics.
Yeah.
I'm not rooting for him to win MVP. I'm not rooting for him to win anything. Literally. And so, like, I don't get any of that, man. That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Kobe White to ball out against the Hawks. I wasn't like over the moon about it. Like, I love Harrison Barnes was my first favorite college basketball player. I was excited for him to win a championship when he won one with the Warriors.
Yeah,
but I wasn't like rooting for it.
Right.
Like I wanted Harrison
You're
Barnes.
You're happy for them.
Yeah, and I was happy for him. I don't know. I just, maybe it's maybe it's, I don't fall in love with college basketball players like I do. Maybe it's because they're not there as long always. I mean, listen.
Yeah, recently at least.
Love Marcus Page. Justin Jackson's love those guys, but I don't fall in love with them like the way I do with Philly sports athletes.
Yeah,
I'm not college football players.
Yeah.
The way I love college football players, because again, those guys are there for 3 years at least.
Yes, at least. Yeah, that is a big part of college basketball that you're not lying about. And obviously at Duke, we face it too. The one and dones, the two and dones, right? Even 2 years is not really enough time to, click and really attach to that said player. I side note, I know we're getting into college basketball. I think it is impacting, championship winning. Like for example, the UNC Tar Heels have a lot of longevity, seniority in the last couple teams they put out there. They've been fairly more successful than Duke, who's just had a ton of one and dones. And I do think that hurts your program when it keeps happening over and over and over again. You don't have any continuity.
That it happens because they just don't have that tournament experience. I know North Carolina bounced early this year, but the reason North Carolina is always a threat in the tournament is because they always have guys that have been there and played in the tournament.
Yeah.
They're going to come in
next year. RJ coming back next year
with a team full of guys that have played in the tournament. So
yeah, no, you're spot on, man. So moving on to the next game, game 3 on Thursday. What is it that the Sixers need to do in your mind to win this game? Is it just be at home and be better than the Knicks, or what specifically would the Sixers need to do to kind of bounce back and finally grab a game in this series, man?
Maxey and Embiid need to keep playing the way they are, and role players just need to step up on the offensive side of the ball.
It's pretty simple.
They need to step up on the offensive side of the ball, because if they don't, it's done. It's going to be over, and our bags are going to be packed, and we might as well just stay in Philly because it's over. Yeah.
If not this game, the next game, or the next, you know what I mean? Like, if your role players don't step up at some point in this series, you will go home, and that is factual. And that's regardless of the game 2 result, right? That's what we were talking about earlier, where there are things that the Sixers can control in this series. Well, your bench, your role players showing up is one of those. But I think it is impacting, championship winning. Like I said, the Sixers need to keep playing the way they are, and finally grab a game in this series. If not this game, the next game, or the next, you know what I mean? Like, if your role players don't step up at some point in this series, you will go home, and that is factual. And that's what we were talking about earlier, where there are things that the Sixers can control in this series. Well, your bench, your role players showing up is one of those. But To your point earlier, you brought it up with Ricky Council. KJ Martin's another guy that comes to mind, plays physical, can help with rebounding, maybe willing to do a little bit of the dirty work like his father used to, and Kenyon Martin. I'm looking at KJ Martin, Ricky Council, and Cam Payne. Maybe you give some of those Buddy minutes to Cam Payne, see how he does. I am open to the idea of giving Buddy an opportunity at home, though, just to see how he shoots the ball if he's a little more comfortable. But he's looked horrible.
I also would love for Batum to, actually do something offensively. 6 points this series. He goes out there, drops a 20-piece on the Heat, and then scores 6 points in the first 2 games. Like, maybe it is. Maybe he shouldn't be in the fourth quarter. I mean, maybe he shouldn't be.
Yeah. The thing is, man, that it's a touchy subject, man, because you're talking about experience, IQ, and then you look at like a Ricky Council, for example, who is just pure energy and, just rage, right? He comes on the court and he creates chaos. So it is interesting. But, yeah, Batum, all of those guys on the bench, Paul Reed, across the board need to step up here.
They just need somebody to step up. It doesn't matter who. It just needs to be somebody.
Yeah, somebody outside of Maxey or Embiid, man. Do you got the Sixers winning on Thursday? I forgot to ask that.
Yeah, I do. I think they're going to win. I think I don't think it's going to be very close. It's just because of how desperate they are.
Yeah, and I think the refs. I think the NBA will go overabundance in a sense to not help the Sixers, but favor them in a sense. I really do. They shouldn't. It's not the way the game should be. It should just go back to being fair rather than the opposite way. But I just have a feeling they're going to try to save face and try to help us out in a sense or something to make up for it. We'll see.
They're going to win. I think they're going to win by they're going to just control the whole game. They're going to win by 15, I think. I really do think
that's the frustrating part about it is that they have controlled. First game 1, they controlled legitimately half of that game. Game 2, they controlled that entire game, in my opinion, man. And that's what is really frustrating. Outside of a moment at the end of the third quarter, they've really controlled most of that game in game 2. And so when you look at it that way, they've controlled most of the series so far, yet have 0 wins to show for it. But let's get the W on Thursday, man. We'll be back. Maybe you could join me and Dylan for Sixers pregame tomorrow evening before the Sixers game. We'll dig into it some more there. But let's talk some birds before we get out of here. We got about 10 minutes left, my man. Eagles draft tomorrow. We're going to be a little busy with the Sixers playoff game. I'm going to be double screening. Yeah, Marshawn. Hey, Marshawn, I see you in the comments. I've been wondering where you've been. We just had the Sixers conversation. If you missed it, definitely go back and take a look after the show. If not, we will be here for Sixers pregame tomorrow night, roughly right before the Sixers game tomorrow evening. So roughly around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or so. So definitely tap back in if you want to talk Sixers. We went through those brutal thoughts already. So we are moving to the Eagles for the last part of the show here, my man. But thank you for tapping in, as always, Marshawn. Cole, I sent a text to you before the show. I wanted your top 3 guys that you would like to see the Eagles take. Before we get into who we would like to see the Eagles take, who do you actually think they're going to take, or a position that you think they're going to go in the direction of?
They're going to take an offensive lineman in the first round. I don't want them to, but they're going to take probably CJ Latham from Alabama or Mims from Georgia. They love to build their lines through the SEC, which I like.
Yeah,
they're not bad picks, but they're not what they desperately need. You can find solid offensive linemen, especially the way Howie Roseman drafts in the later rounds with offensive linemen. In the later rounds, you can go to the third round and get some nice guys. You could wait till the fourth. I know Adesanya Isaac from Penn State. I watched a lot of him this year. He was an absolute beast for Penn State and protecting Drew Aller. He's some guy that you could get in a later round. There's Isaiah Isaacs. He's an edge rusher. I apologize. I mixed up. I forget what the offensive lineman's name is. But those are the types of guys that the Eagles can go out there and get. Brandon Coleman. He's another one from TCU. But at the end of the day, I just don't see them doing it. I think they're going to go in the first round and grab the offensive lineman. It's just a very typical Eagles thing to do.
You're not lying, man. You're not lying. And the thing that makes me feel that way even more, I'll say this. I wouldn't be surprised if they address the trenches somehow, right? Like whether that's offensive tackle or edge rusher. I would not be surprised. I would lean offensive tackle. Obviously, Lane Johnson replacement is what we're talking about here. I would lean that way just because we know Howie Roseman, the Eagles' tendencies as an organization to build through the trenches, like you said, but also the recent smokescreen.
Yeah.
Right? It reminds me of last year when the Bijan Robinson smokescreen came out, right? The Eagles are going to trade up for Bijan Robinson. The Eagles are all in on Bijan Robinson. They want that running back for the future, so on and so forth.
Which
they put that smokescreen.
NFL history.
Exactly.
I was so out on that. I was incredibly out on that. But
what did they actually do?
They went out there and got Jalen Carter.
Which was the right move, by the way. I'm completely happy about it. But that's what it kind of reminds me of. The Eagles are looking to trade up for a corner. The Eagles are looking to trade up for Quinyon Mitchell, right? Like all of these specific rumors. It makes me think that that's not what they're doing.
The thing is, too, they don't need to trade up for a corner. There's going to be plenty of corners at 22.
There's plenty available.
The Eagles really, I get they want to build that offensive line because that's where the Eagles have made their bread and butter for years. But there are so many, the way the Eagles draft position is, you can fill a lot of defensive holes and then wait till the 4th or 5th round to grab an offensive lineman. And if he doesn't work, you're back at the draft table next year.
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing because, like, I do get it. Like you said, we build through the trenches. Our trenches are one of the best in the NFL. But we do also have the cases of, like, Jordan Mailata, who wasn't drafted in the first round by any means, right? Like, Cam Jurgens wasn't drafted in the first round. Landon Dickerson was not drafted in the first round. Yeah, so actually, it's not that we have to draft an offensive lineman in the first round for them to be good with Jeff Stoutland and the rest of this surrounding offensive line. And so to your point, I agree. I think you can get an offensive lineman in the 3rd round, the 4th round, the 5th round even. Maybe the 2nd round if you're feeling that desperate to get something there and do it early, right, and get the best talent. But the 1st round, man, I think you're going to have so many options to address specifically not just corners, right? Like, I want a corner, and we'll get into, like, who I want as well here, but I'll take a safety. I'll take a linebacker. I'll take a defensive. I'll take defense all around, man. I'll take a
linebacker. The only issue with the linebacker is there's a big drop off. I think the Eagles should wait till the 2nd round to go with a linebacker. A corner just makes sense in the 1st round.
For is it Adrian Cooper? Is that his name? That's like the
Jeremiah Trotter Jr. That's who I'm eyeing up.
Oh, that's who you. Okay, so the Cooper name is the one I've been seeing floated. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. was the name that was floated kind of a lot earlier than Cooper's name, but those are two guys that do have the pedigree in the 2nd round. But I do feel you on Trotter. Just do it. Do it for the culture, man. Do it at least for the culture. But the fact that he's also a great player too.
Yeah, he was a beast. He was a beast. I mean, they should 100% go after him in the 2nd round. In the 1st round, we want corner. There's 2 guys who one of them should fall to the Eagles. One of them should. Either Cooper DeJean, the corner from Iowa, or Kool-Aid McAllister from Alabama.
Yeah. And those are the 2 guys I have written down here first. If the Eagles are looking to stay at 22 or if they stay at 22, these are the 2 guys that you should have a shot at one of these guys, right? And it is Cooper DeJean. That's the one that I would want just because of his versatility. I love the idea of bringing him in as a safety / corner / possible return man. Like, he can do a lot of different things, kind of similar to a Reed Blankenship. He seems like he's a lot more athletic than a Reed Blankenship, though. Sidney Brown, right? But he has a lot more pedigree than guys like those with that versatility. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I mean, he's from Bama, man. You're following the pedigree once again there. Another guy that excelled, right? And I think you can't go wrong with either of those guys. Those would be my top 2 that I want, to be clear here. The other guys that I would mention, but you've kind of talked me out of it just with what we've talked about here, being able to stay where you are and get the guys that I just mentioned. But Terrion Arnold from Bama and Quinyon Mitchell, who I just mentioned from Toledo, who you mentioned earlier as well. These are the two guys that have been mentioned up as trade up targets for the Eagles in this draft. So those were the two guys I had to round out my list. Nonetheless, I'm looking to enhance the secondary. We need playmakers, man. Yeah. Secondary and linebacker. Like you said, I think linebacker in the second round is where it fits best. But first round, I would love specifically just to add a playmaker to the defense. We already have so much money invested on the offensive side of the ball, man. So invest something into the defense, right?
A fourth, fifth round offensive lineman and a fourth, fifth, sixth round wide receiver really should suffice for the Eagles.
Like, offensively.
They're not desperate in those positions. That's the thing. If you want to win a Super Bowl, you need to find ways to fill holes now.
Yeah.
And also, where's your most age at right now? It's at the cornerback position.
Yeah.
Their corners are old. They're old. Yeah. Like, Slay's old.
It's as simple as that. Yeah, it's as simple as that.
Plug the holes. Get somebody young in there. Get somebody like Cooper DeJean or McAllister in there.
Yeah.
Get them in there. Give them time to get experience under these guys who it's not a technique thing. It's more just of an age thing for these guys. Get them in there. Let them play with Slay and Bradbury for a couple of years. And if they start playing better, keep them in. Give them a chance to learn.
The other side of that as well, you mentioned their age. You mentioned Bradbury and Slay. We saw Bradbury have a down year last year. We'll find out this year if that was just a slump or if that's who he is now, if he's just washed. With Slay, he's been banged up the last few years, but hasn't missed too many games. He's had some down moments, but he's still easily been the best corner on the team.
Yeah.
When is his down year? When's his slide coming? You need to get ahead of that. So I do think age is a big factor in this situation and exactly why you should go out there and address. They just addressed it with the offensive line, right? Tyler Smith, right? Last year. They drafted him. He's supposed to be a guy that's pretty sturdy when it comes to depth. So unless Lane Johnson is retiring like right now, I think we could settle down, maybe wait till the third round, at max to draft offensive linemen. That being said, we know they're going to draft an offensive lineman in the first round, man.
I would
so we'll have to move our sights maybe to the second or third round to address what we're looking for. Hopefully not. Hopefully they go. What I would say best player available defensive wise is not a bad route to go either for them, but specifically corners, secondary is where they need to go, man. But anything else from you today, Cole? Eagles, Sixers, before we get out of here, my man?
No, man. I mean, I said my piece with the Sixers. I'm going to try to get over game 2 and focus on game 3 tomorrow. But and the Eagles, I mean, I'm just expecting to not be thrilled with the pick. If we get if we get, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in the second round, we get a Cooper DeJean or a McAllister, I'll be very, very happy. So that's all I got.
I completely agree with that. I will be very, very happy. Most likely, I should be decently happy with the Eagles regardless, man. It seems like Howie knows what he's doing. But
I mean, I'm not going to be like up in arms, but I'm not going to be jumping for joy. Yay, we drafted a backup offensive lineman.
Another backup offensive lineman. Stacking the trenches for the future. We know that's what they do, but hopefully they stack that secondary up in the first round here, man. But let's go Sixers on Thursday. Tomorrow we will be back for a Sixers pregame, roughly around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow evening. So be sure to tap in, hit the like button, share your comments, and go Sixers, man. That's going to be it for this episode. For myself, you can find me at Scotty Drown. And for Cole, you can find Cole. What is your ad name? You don't got it on the screen here. Give it out.
Right. It's Cole.Tom.
Cole.Tom. Got you.
Yeah,
so at Cole.Tom, just like on the screen there. That's going to be it for me and Cole today. Have a good one, everybody. Peace.